Welcome back, everybody. And this week we've got 2.5 grumpy old men, because Greg's not quite as old as
Is that because his hip is so young?
I was just going to say,
Hey.
not as grumpy because my hip feels so much better.
There you go. There's that too. So what we're going to be looking at is really the major advances or otherwise of the motor vehicle and the pros and cons of modern cars versus old school. Analog versus
Digital versus
stroke
mechanical.
Mechanical. Yeah. And we kind of figure the best place to start off really is the whole kind of running system of the vehicle, which of course nowadays is controlled by an ECU. In the old days, it was points and condensers and carburetors and God knows what, all of which you could play with fairly readily and repair. On the flip side, you had to play with fairly regularly and adjust and repair every other weekend or whatever.
Do you think when they switched from points to a like magnetic style that everybody was having that argument then? They're like, oh, we like the points. We don't want to have to replace that whole unit. Like this was probably the argument you're talking what? And so I've got a 78. That's the same year as your Cowie, right? So that year was the first year they switched from the points, and actually the first, I forget, like half of the model year had points in it still. So that's the biggest thing with that bike when you're getting that year is you have to find out whether
my 77 has still got old school unless it's been upgraded.
Yeah, it's crazy. And somebody was having that argument then. So having both, this much later, how were the points to work on versus would you still rather just replace the whole unit? I mean, kind of going back in time, what do you think about that move?
Well, I honestly, in that respect, I'd rather jump forward and replace it. Yeah. And, again, the beauty of modern vehicles is that 99 times out of 100 or more, you jump in them, you turn the key or actually press a button, whatever. We'll get to that in a minute. And they work, right? And that's it. And talking to Kawasaki's, I bought what was it, the KH500. You call it the H2, H1. So 500cc triple two-stroke.
Okay, yeah. Now I know what you're talking about.
In Ohio. Beautiful, beautiful bike. I'd always wanted one. Really pretty, crazy, fast, top end, obviously, because it's two-stroke. And brought it to Sedona, 4,500 feet above sea level, and it was like, right? Because it was all tuned for Ohio. I don't know what sea level that is at, but
they're right around me. I think we're like 33 feet. We're way lower than thousands.
Yeah, but that's the issue, with the old school stuff. You change altitude and there's no ECU to sit there and go, oh, I'm getting less oxygen for my air intake than I should be. Therefore, I need to adjust this and adjust that and blah, blah, blah. And it's all kind of done for you. Whereas old school, you got to sort it out.
I've had to change the needle on my car. So I changed those. I've got the pods. And having the pods instead of the airbox, just changing brands of the pods, I had to change way down on my size.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, again, had that on a Honda where I had to rejet the whole thing. So, these are the pros and cons. And if you know what you're doing, can adjust, then it's nicer to have that manual override. Because if your ECU goes, that's it. The whole car's kind of.
Yeah. No, I would have to buy an ECU instead of like I bought a set of 4, what was it, like 5 sizes for like $40. the needles, you know, the little floats.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Mhm.
for like $40, I had 5 different sizes and all 4 of them that I could kind of fine tune the one I wanted. And I actually find I have a huge difference between fall and summer here. So I mean, it
Oh, wow.
depends. Like when we go up to her parents' house, they're at like 2,000 feet. So as soon as I go up that last hill, you'll start to notice a difference because their last couple hills are pretty big. But it is it's crazy. I think it was more when I changed the air filter. When I swapped those, it made everything so much more finicky, which was weird. So I mean, David, as a guy with the rally stuff, what do you prefer as far as the fuel injection stuff? Do you like the carburetors? What do you?
Well, I haven't had very good experience in carburetors. I've got on my LP, I've got 48 twin 48 carburetors, which are massive, which is stock on a 1600 engine, and it goes out of tune all the time. All the time. It's just ridiculous. So that's the big downside to me. And there, with the twin carburetors, it's really difficult to balance between the two. And God help me if they
Webers, right?
Yeah, they're Webers. Got all of the, you know, what do they call it? To adjust the jets and all this kind of stuff. Trying to get anybody to find out how to make them actually work properly is a real challenge today because it's a lost art. People really don't know how to do it anymore, and everybody's flailing and trying to get it tuned is a real problem.
But twin Webers were famously, you know, super high performance, but as you say, super finicky, right? I mean, they have to be set up, balanced, everything, right?
You really got to get it done on a dyno so you get it, you can, you know, represent what it's like on the road. Because when it's standing still, it revs beautifully, fantastic. It's only when it's under load. So you need to get to a dyno. So you need a dyno and a guy that knows carburetors. And that's challenging to find. In fact, I haven't found one.
Well, especially if you just drive up the road to Flagstaff and have to do it again before you go home.
Greg, between my place here and my place in Flagstaff, it's 5,000 feet difference.
Yeah,
so 6,000 feet.
That's huge.
So that's taller than our tallest mountain in New York State. Like I think our highest peak is 5,200 feet or something like that. So we're.
Well, I mean, for us Brits, that's ridiculous because what's the highest Ben Nevis or whatever is like 1,500 feet or something.
Which is 3,000.
All right. So, you know, I mean, we just don't understand altitude whatsoever. And we come over here and suddenly my mate David down the road is living 3,000 foot lower than me.
So how was that coming from there to here? I mean, so when you guys moved here, everything was kind of going ECU anyways, but did you notice a big difference in any of the old, like, because you both race, do you race carburetor or do you race ECUs?
We race carburetor, and actually we haven't really noticed a massive difference on the Porsche, and maybe that's you know, bearing in mind it's got a Chevy motor. Maybe that's hats off to Edelbrock or whatever our carb is. I forget what it is.
Edelbrock, yeah, that's the big.
Yeah.
Edelbrock is the Austrian version.
No, you're thinking of Edelweiss, I think. Yeah.
Don't start singing.
Actually, I got a guitar hanging right there I can grab. We can just start jamming if that's what we're doing.
If you walk into his garage with a guitar now, I'm going to freak out.
So, but do you guys race at one track, or are you guys changing elevation? Is it just one place you guys mainly race?
Generally, it's California, most of which is not an issue. But I guess when we go to High Plains in Colorado, right? I guess that's about the same level as where I'm at, like 4,500, 5,000 above sea level. So, but we've never noticed it running badly because of that. It's usually because of some other catastrophe.
We're not to that level of sophistication yet, Greg. It's whether it turns on or not.
But yeah, so you know,
so when you're doing your Renaults, Tommy, were they carburetors?
Oh yeah.
Okay, because the Subaru I had was a ECU and the Porsche was ECU, like 944 was ECU. So I've just dealt with ECUs and chipping cars and tuning cars. It's a lot easier to chip especially when the turbocharged cars. I mean, that's what's super easy. You
No,
just flash
absolutely.
it. Like my Subaru, I used to flash it before I used to go. So I used to go empty the gas tank, flash the car, put in race gas, and I was good to go. And it was
Yeah.
like,
But
it's
nowadays,
super
you
easy.
almost need a software programmer to know how to tune your car. Depending on
Yeah.
what you got, you're not only bringing a mechanic to help you turn wrenches. You need somebody who's a bit of a network engineer more than anything. And a lot of the stuff is going digital. I mean, we got a lot of stuff on the list here which we haven't even really touched on. We had completely different. It looked like we were starting somewhere, and I did not help keep this organized at all.
No,
But-
me neither. It kind of made sense to start with that because the ECU is effectively the heart of the modern car, and it controls everything.
And it does not have one of these.
Yeah, no, that knob does not exist anymore.
Look at that, Tom, and I can see you.
Yeah, this knob exists. Honestly, yeah. I mean, there must be 30% of the entire population that, or no, probably more than that doesn't know what that is and what it means. It's actually a very good graphic, right? Because you've got basically the butterfly in the middle that's choking the carburetor, i.e., starving it of oxygen and making it fuel rich to enable to start the car, because that's what it used to require, basically closing off the oxygen and making it fuel rich just to get the motor started. And then once it was slightly warmed up, you could put the choke in a little. I have to tell you a funny story actually on chokes what I remember. So my good friend Gavin that I went to school with, he had a Honda Civic, one of the first Honda Civics, which had a choke. But he used it as like kind of an overdrive. So when he was going up a hill, he'd pull the choke and it would actually go faster, amazingly. I mean, shouldn't it kind of throttle it at that point? I don't know.
Well, no. So that's how, like, one of the guys that I trust to tune motorcycles, that's what he does. He'll drive and then he pulls the choke a little bit and he tests it. So if you're doing that, you're not throwing enough gas into it. So you have to limit the air that's coming. And so it will make it run better. So that does, yeah, because you're flooding the motor out and waiting for it to catch up. So yeah, essentially he would dump a ton of gas into it, then get the mixture right and let it roll.
Wow. All right, Gavin, I apologize. You knew what you were doing the whole time.
I'm sure it worked out just like that in his head.
Yeah, funny. But yeah, I mean, it's also funny. So my MV Agusta, the 2000 MV Agusta, has a choke on it, which, fairly, I suppose it's not that modern anymore, but, reasonably modern motorcycle compared to Kawasaki's great. And yet that has a choke.
I assume it has a carburetor as well, then.
Yeah.
Okay.
But, it's kind of interesting to find that. I've never used it. I've never needed to, obviously, because it never gets that cold here. And that thing, I leave it for months and hit the button and it starts up. It's quite amazing, actually, for what you'd expect to be a fairly finicky Italian motorcycle. It actually is quite incredible. But
Very Honda-like. You just go over to it, turn the key, and push the start button.
Yeah, except last time, but I think that's because I've still got a fuel leak and I think there's no gas in it.
I think didn't even check it, just didn't start. And he's like, I'm done with it. Put it away.
It turned over and it's like, it's not firing. Pretty sure the gas is gone.
But actually, so as you're explaining it too, so these are some giant carburetors. This would be something on a car, something I would definitely not want to take apart. No understanding of that whatsoever.
Well, they're weird, right? So flip back. Yeah, that's pretty much what we've got.
These ones, right?
That's what we have on the right now.
Yeah. I think they're twin choke, right?
Yeah, that's the one on the left, the bottom left. That's the one we have.
Yeah. But the other weird looking stuff is particularly was used in, those. Was used in the UK. I had two of them on my Triumph TR7.
I was going to say, what is that setup? Could you explain it to me?
No, I can't. It's a Stromberg carburetor. They were used. Triumph used them. Rover used them. I don't know who else, but very popular.
Were they on some Jaguars as well?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I mean 70s through to turn of the century or less, 90s maybe. They were very popular. To your point, David, you'd need a Stromberg carburetor specialist, right?
Yeah.
Right?
And everybody would change to Weber's, wouldn't they? If they're going to do some performance, the first thing you do is change it to a Weber. Have the expertise in those areas because they've all gone to Weber's, and now all those people have died as well.
So
Probably.
it looks like that's like the float bowl. Looking at the side of it, the float bowls are sitting next to it, and then it has to suck over to get the mist to come up through. That's got to be, that adds a whole nother level.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah.
But
So,
I honestly think that most people, you had to have a basic understanding of an engine though when you did it. Whereas nowadays a kid can just go out and turn the key. They don't have to process what's happening at all.
No.
yeah, true.
You have to think, how many times do I press the accelerator before I try and start it?
Three pumps, pull the choke out halfway. As soon as it fires, get it to a quarter. Not too far because it'll,
You'll flood it, and
Like my lawnmower I was telling you guys about today. So my son got an amazing lesson. It does have an automatic choke on it, so he didn't know. But having the carburetor, he turned it over on its side, and the air filter filled up with fuel, and then couldn't figure out why it wouldn't start. Thankfully, he didn't catch the air filter on fire. He was able to find the air filter because it smelled so strongly like gas. He was like, "Oh, I bet you that's what Dad's talking about." So I mean, it was helpful.
I've forgotten how much you have to that throttle, and then you'd be punching the throttle just to try and get it started as well. There's so many different techniques. Do you remember the R5 as well, Timon, with the start?
I was just going to bring that up. So when David got his R5 Turbo 2, you had issues with it starting when it was hot, right?
Yeah.
And I had the GT2 Turbo, which was front engined and general production car basically. And I said, when it was hot, I basically had to put my foot flat on the floor on the throttle and just crank it and crank it and crank it until enough fuel got through that wasn't being evaporated that it would actually fire up. And once that had happened, it was okay. And it was similar with the Turbo 2, right?
Yeah, but it was like minutes. It wasn't like 20 seconds. It was like...
Oh, no, Yeah, because basically all the fuel was evaporating on its way because of the heat that the turbo created when the car was sat and warm and hot. And of course, when you turn it off, it gets hotter while it's stationary for a little anyway, right? So that was a big issue with turbos, I guess, in those days, right? That they created.
There was no coolant. After you turn the car off, there was no coolant.
Yeah.
So having the turbo, it's a huge advantage to have the ECU.
I guess.
I'm trying to think. Are there many cars that have turbos and carburetors?
No, and they really, if you think about it, they didn't start putting turbos on things all the time until everybody had an ECU. Like even Honda's got that new 3-cylinder motorcycle with the turbo built into it. Have you seen that?
No.
Yeah, they've got it's a Honda 3-cylinder, like it was a concept a couple years ago, should be out in a year or two. But it's a wicked sweet it's got a mini turbo built into it. But I bet you like all that stuff is possible now just because of the electronics.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because Honda were one of the first to do a turbo motorcycle, right? The CX500 turbo or something, right? Kawasaki also did one back in the, mid-80s, 90s maybe. But yeah, I mean, turbos is probably something we're not going to touch on.
No, it's definitely not. I was just saying, as far as the pros and the cons versus the old and the new. I mean, there's not a lot of people like to talk about being able to dial the carbs in, but like anybody who's actually owned one knows it's a pain in the ass 90% of it. It's like a race vehicle. Like if you have something that's built for racing, you don't want to drive that to work every day because you have to work on it. Oil has to be changed every 500 miles. Like there's so many more different rules to a race type car. I mean, the more performance.
Oh, sure.
Would you say that because of the convenience of things now, though, it's easier for people to get a performance style car and it's still reliable enough to drive around?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All the things that have been developed, I think a lot of that comes down to like the all of the traction control and that kind of stuff. I think that traction control has been the biggest reason that we've had such a massive boost in horsepower, because the cars can't kill you. I think in the old days they could kill you. I think about like the 930 Porsche, the 911 Turbo, which had a really bad reputation. Couldn't put any more power into that because it would kill you. But as soon as they got traction control, then you can get the horsepower going up to 600, 700, and it doesn't kill you. So it's, a completely different animal when you can actually control that thing.
I mean, think about it. They were trying to build frames that could sustain these motors. Like when you think of the American muscle cars, the main reason they handled like crap was because they built everything square so it would handle it. It could handle it more in a straight line. But that's why everything was so big and boxy, was their answer in engineering. That's the old American way. Just make it bigger. It'll be stronger. It's like, okay.
Well, at the same time, if, to your point, David, if it was just going to kill you, you shouldn't be driving it, right? If you can't handle it, don't drive it.
Yeah, but people don't think like that.
We don't. Well, it still happens in the world of motorcycles. So certainly, the last time I read anything about it, which was probably 20 years ago, the biggest death rate in the UK in terms of road accidents was people getting to their mid-40s or 40-ish, never rode a motorcycle in their life, thought it was a nice idea because there's this thing that will do 0 to 100 in 4 seconds. Wow. And those were the guys that were getting killed, not idiots like me who managed to make it through from a 50cc to a 125 to a 400, whatever. They go straight out. They buy a GSXR 750, whatever.
I saw a guy. I rode with a guy who brand new ZX14. So it was when the 14 first came out back. Yeah. And he was a big kid. He was like 300 pounds. So he was like, I need a big motorcycle. I was like, that's not really how this works, bud. But anyway, so I was on a 87 Nighthawk and I took the turn, no problem. And actually was catching up to him in the turn. So the problem was he was going faster than he knew what to do. And instead of just leaning the bike over, he stood it up and white knuckled everything. So he hit the station wagon head on. And when he hit the station wagon, I was actually next to him because, I knew how to turn a motorcycle. So I had gotten up and was, it was bad. But I watched him fly through the air. And his response was, it was the motorcycle's fault. And he was going to get a Harley. I was like, they handle worse. Like, you couldn't handle the sport bike. A Harley is like the terrible idea, but I was like, you need like a Ninja 250.
He would be going slower, though.
I don't know. Nowadays, those Harleys fly. I mean, as long as they're running, they don't run very often. But when they do run, a lot of them will go fast in a straight line.
But David and I met a guy at a car show, actually, of all things here it wasn't a car show, was it? It was that rally that came through Sedona. So there's this guy, I don't know, what was he, 35-ish, one leg, had some crazy Kawasaki, I forget what it was. He'd had up to over 175 mile an hour. So as if one leg wasn't enough, he then showed us, he lifted up his t-shirt and there's this huge kind of Frankenstein type gap across his stomach. I mean, he'd had so many accidents and he was relatively young, so I guess it's not, well, I don't know when he started motorcycling, but the point I guess we were coming from was traction control and everything for cars, which does exist to some degree for bikes. You know, you got ABS and
But they
everything
all
else.
thought wheelie control meant that they could wheelie. Like that, they were like, I can wheelie. It's like, wait, the computer's wheeling for you. It's like it's the computer is stopping you from flipping over backwards. You're not really doing a wheelie, but
Right. And
But the reason why all that stuff is good though is the fact that they will build those cars.
Yeah.
Because the liability isn't there.
yeah.
So that wouldn't exist. These cars wouldn't exist if they didn't have those kind of level of control over.
What do you think has improved
there
safety the
were-
most, though? So, like looking at that, do you think it's traction controls, tires? I mean, what do you think? I mean, obviously, I think it's drums going from drums to rotors, as far as like every muscle car in America. But what do you think the most impressive safety feature is with a new thing that's made things like legitimately way better for people to drive?
Possibly ABS. I don't like
Very
it,
true.
but because I'm not in control once it's kicked
No,
in.
yeah, but riding with my wife, I'm
Right.
glad they have it. I've heard it
Right.
kick in when she slams on the brakes, or you know,
Right.
I've heard it. That
But-
is a huge safety. Yeah,
Yeah, someone who can't handle a skid and doesn't know. I mean, that's a weird thing. I don't know if you learn that or if you just know it. Because when my previous marriage, my stepdaughter was playing on a computer game, and she just automatically had that kind of negative lock thing. You know, when it went into a skid, she automatically it was just instinct to her. And I don't know if that's really an instinct thing or not, but you know, I know loads of people that haven't got that, and therefore, if a car goes into a skid and whatever, they don't know to let off a little bit, just try again. Yeah, there's all of that. So, but
Well,
are
and the
these
thing-
things making us worse drivers?
100%.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because I don't know if you know, Greg, but in the UK, I don't know if it's what it's like for the state you're in, but part of the driving test was an emergency stop.
We no,
Yes,
if-
yeah. We had
it
that
is-
conversation about me doing it too quickly on the Triumph last time, right?
Yeah, so you got to stop without locking up your wheels. And obviously,
Yeah.
I wonder if they will do that today, Timon, because it's because of ABS. Perhaps they don't even do it.
Probably,
Okay.
well, probably not, right? Because it's a non-event, right? The car's going to do it for you, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Unless you just bought my Bel Air.
Yeah. But there's another, I don't even know what it's called in a car. It's not called traction control, but I would say in the 2000s, they put some sort of control in the car that, you know, like if you start to, I think it's a horrible word, fishtail, go sideways, that's swerving. There's like an anti-swerve mechanism in cars. So like on the freeway, it keeps you going straighter. So, you know, cars used to spin out and stuff. There's
Yeah.
some technology in cars that's a lot of this stuff we don't know about because we're not smart enough, I guess. It's like the backup camera, right? Every car has to have a backup camera so that you don't run kids over. That's the reason
Yeah.
for it. It's
But
now-
now going back to swerving, a very good mate of mine at school wrote off his Mark 1 Escort on the M4, hit some ice, and suddenly, like, you know,
yeah.
Armco, side Armco, bang, bang. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
to me, it's all about the fact it's enabled us to have more powerful cars. If you didn't have those things, if you can turn those things off, that's what makes your car more entertaining to me. But I don't think I think it would have like maxed out at 300 horsepower. I don't think there would have been much more than that if it wasn't for the traction controls.
I
And all
don't-
those kind of-
Here we go again, right? What's more enjoyable to drive? Something with 250 horsepower that you're totally in control of. And
right.
you need to be doing stupid miles an hour to have fun, or something that's 750 horsepower or more. You know, I mean, 1,000 horsepower is nothing these days, right? And it's all done for you, and it's like, yeah, you know, I did a review on the Corvette C6 versus the C8, and honestly, driver engagement wise, give me the C6 every day of the week. I mean, yeah, the performance in the C8 is phenomenal, but did I feel like I was driving it or just kind of semi a passenger?
Right.
Speaking of which, did you notice what we did there? We threw these up as you said that. Did you feel? I threw the feeler gauges up on the screen. So
I didn't see that.
Speaking of which, the feeler gauges. So talking about the feel of a vehicle, there is something about a mechanical anything that feels cool to drive. Like driving that 78 I've got, or even like an old, like growing up, the old Hondas we had, where you could feel it as you were, shifting between the gears. But even knowing what a feeler gauge, nobody understands that they have to gap their spark plugs. Like when I tried to explain that to my son on the 78 that we were gapping the spark plugs, he's like, you don't just buy it and put it in. I was like, on the lawnmower, I don't really care. Yeah, I do. And hopefully it works. If not, I'll figure it out. But I was like, no, on anything else. Yeah. I was like, you get the owner's manual out. They tell you what it is. You check it because especially with manufacturing nowadays, you feel like so much of the stuff is pushed through by the cheapest guy. You really, and everybody says not to check that stuff, but I still like to check the spark plugs.
Well, so that again, really funny story, and this I think it's before David joined the race team, but with the Porsche, it was running a bit rough and whatever, and so we took out the plugs, and there was no gap at all. And what we realised was that the plugs that we'd ordered were slightly too long, so basically the piston was like smacking into
Slamming
not enough to damage the piston, thankfully, but it did bend the gap. Yeah.
As I said, Greg, our racing is more like, does the car actually turn on?
Just making it to the starting line is the biggest accomplishment.
It's pretty quick and it's fun to drive when it's working well.
But I mean, that comes down to a lot of what we're doing here, though. I mean, if we all just drove stuff that was fun and comfortable, we'd basically just be driving, the most comfortable Lexus or Maserati or whatever around town, and there'd be no need to race things. We wouldn't have these old collection things. I mean, the rally stuff, especially the old stuff, that is not very comfortable on the street. If you had a suspension that was built for actually like rallying or something that was slamming around, you don't want to drive that every day.
No, absolutely you don't.
But so like your new Maserati, how many options did you just have in that? I was watching the video today. You had, I mean, a suspension button. Like there's literally just one button dedicated to adjusting your suspension. Could you imagine having that 20 years ago in some car that you were just picking up?
Oh, God knows. No. Yeah, I mean, you'd have to spend all weekend with God knows what, right?
Yeah, trying to figure things out and calling somebody. And there was no YouTube back then, so you weren't just checking everybody. But you had to go to a mechanic who hopefully knew it.
Yeah, I mean, the first time I got a bike that had, monoshock adjustment, and it's like, all right, I'll crank it this way. Oh, God, I'm jumping all over. I crank it the other way, and it's like all soft and soggy. Okay. And that was like enough, but just to have it at the touch of a button, yeah, amazing. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, this is what this is all about. There's so many pros for the advancement, but the cons are let's punch up the engine warning light. Right. So shock horror. This came on in my Toyota FJ for the first time ever. And
what year is it?
It's a 2013. I've had it regularly serviced until now, honestly. And I just left it longer than a year or 18 months even. So to some degree, my neglect. Well, I checked the oil. We'll come to that later on a Mercedes. I check the oil and water and everything regularly anyway, and it's a Toyota, right? It's bulletproof. So the engine warning light comes on, ironically, when the Maserati Ghibli is completely screwed and gone. And it's like, oh, great, our only car, our trusty Toyota, now's got an engine warning light. So I panic, I phone the dealership, we get it up there, met David up in Flagstaff there. And turns out, engine warning light is like, oh, your car's about to explode, right? Your panic mode, right? What it was the fuel filler cap.
Wasn't screwed on tight enough.
Don't start trying to blame me.
I know exactly what it is because I've seen so many people do it. My buddy's got the computer.
It was actually faulty, right? So after more than 10 years, the fuel filler cap, I don't know, the seal or whatever was slightly faulty. But I mean, Christ, engine warning light, really? How?
But how frustrating is it when it's one of those evap sensors? So what's the magic year in Arizona? So in New York, it's 96, I think. Anything older than a 96 doesn't. There is no check engine light that matters for your inspection.
Oh, nothing matters to your inspection here. There is no inspection in Arizona.
You guys don't have car inspections?
No. It depends which part of Arizona. There's different counties. So,
Oh yeah,
like, yes, like in Phoenix, Maricopa County, which I think is the biggest county, maybe in the country or something stupid, we have to do emissions down here. But out in the sticks where people play banjos, they don't have to do emissions.
That's amazing because I live out there in one of those towns basically here, so I wouldn't have to do emissions. You know how happy the woodchucks would be up here if they didn't have to do that? They'd be able to drive all their trucks with the huge exhaust. Oh my goodness, they'd all lose their mind. Like everybody here gets something older than a 96. That's a big deal here. So like if I'm looking to get like an old Mustang or anything, I'm going to get something that's older than a 96 just because of New York state laws.
So here, where I am, doesn't matter at all, right? So literally, my buddy Rick, race team member Rick, had a Cobra Roadster, and we took the body off for it to be repainted, I think, and we just drove it around the block with no body on whatsoever. Nobody batted an eyelid. I could drive that stupid bumper car down to Sedona town centre, and the cops.
Nobody would think anything of it.
Cops probably wouldn't even stop me.
I watch guys on YouTube riding like dirt bikes and stuff in like the city of Chicago, and it blows my mind like everybody can do that. Where I live, if you take anything that's not registered, so we have people that ride these little like weed whacker bicycles is what I call them. They got the little 50cc engine on them.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah.
Like the cops will mess with them if they go faster than 20 miles an hour. Like around here, there's not much to mess with. Anybody on a motorcycle doing a wheelie, anything like that, they are all over it. So yeah, it blows my mind when people say stuff like that. Like if I pulled out of my driveway with something that wasn't inspected or didn't have a plate on it, I would be in trouble within a mile.
Yeah, and honestly, I think that's right. I mean, the Bel Air that I've just sold. It had no park brake, no blare. I mean, it was bloody dangerous if it wasn't in the hands of
somebody who knew what they were doing. Like when you park it, turn towards the curb, like that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Like in San Francisco, right? So.
Well, that's an experience people don't have. I learned it because in my first car, I jumped out in first gear, took my foot off the clutch, not thinking. Car was running, and it jumped into my dad's garage. Well, guess what I remembered for the rest of my life? Never to do that again.
That's funny. I did that to my grandfather's car. So that's funny. That was beautiful, actually. It's a Ford Corsair. So like the Cortina Mark 1, David.
Yeah, another one you made.
Yeah, but different.
Angular, almost like an angular front end to it.
Yeah, it was a lovely car. Well, it was before I got behind the wheel. The last thing he said to me was, "Don't take the handbrake off," as he got out. Oh yeah. So in the UK, there is an annual safety check, which honestly is a little bit anal.
Oh, they shouldn't be checking your ass.
Oh,
you're going to the wrong station.
I was going to say that sounds more like a New York thing, where they're very anal with the checks here.
Something to do with emissions, I don't
know. That's our biggest thing. If your car, that's honestly what fails more inspections in New York State than anything. They've killed the aftermarket. Yeah. There's no kids tuning cars. They're not allowed to in New York State. You can't have anything like that.
Well, I had the ridiculousness in the UK. I took my stepdaughter's little a Ford car, the KA. We put some smoked rear lights on it for her to look a little bit cool. And I took the original lights down there in the trunk and took it in. And the guy said, we're going to have to fail it on those lights because there's smoke. smoke glass, and they all look black, and they don't show the colours clearly enough. I said, look, the original ones are in the trunk. I can go home and fit them, bring it back, take it home, swap them over again. What are you going to do? Can you just pass it? And he wouldn't. So that's what I had to.
Yeah, that's New York State every year.
Yeah, to pass the test, I have to put the real lights back on, and when I get it home, and for the rest of the next year, it's going to be running around with the ones that are illegal, and nobody's going to give a damn. So that's where it gets a bit stupid. But in terms of checking the safety, I mean, there's so many cars you pull into a gas station here in northern Arizona, at least, and you think that should not be on the road.
Well, especially you guys don't have the salt. The salt takes care of most of our stuff. Like, you only get so many years.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, but I've seen, buckled wheel rims with chunks missing out of the wheels, right? And it's like that's a blowout just waiting to happen, right? It should not be allowed on the road.
Yeah. There's a line. No, but I mean, that's where the more technology they put in, they'll be able to shut off your car someday. They'll say it's not running right. And boop.
Yeah, that's true.
Speaking of which, you can shut yourself out of a car with, I hate this, doggles or keyless entry, whatever you want to call it, key fobs. I absolutely refuse to buy a car that I cannot put a key in the door and unlock it. I've had way too many dead batteries. I just don't understand, how do I get in to pop my hood if my battery's dead? And
you can, because there's usually a key within the fob. But
right, but the new cars, my in-laws don't even have a spot to put the key.
Oh, and actually, my neighbour just bought a car, and he said he has to get in with his fingerprint, and if that doesn't work, he has a password that he has to do, and it's like, what the hell?
So you get knocked out and have to go to the hospital. Nobody can put you in your own car to take you.
Right. Yeah, but just to me, the whole key fob thing, right? Where do you put it when you get in, right? There used to be a nice place in the dashboard, right?
Yeah, now mine stays in my pocket, which is kind of good because it remembers to lock the car sometimes, but I always lock myself out. But I cannot. I really like a keyed ignition. Plus, with a keyed ignition, as a kid, my dad taught me. He broke a key off in the ignition, so he taught us on the side of the road how to, start one with a screwdriver. So that's like a handy thing. You have to learn how to break the steering lock. My kids will never get that joy in life.
Well, yeah, it's so funny because we were talking about that just before we started, Greg. When the guy came to pick up the Bel Air, the start button was out of the dashboard because it hadn't been working, and I'd fixed it, and I couldn't be bothered to put it in the dashboard. And so there's no key in that because I tweaked everything. I said, look, if the button doesn't work, just take the wires off the back and touch them together, right? You're from New Jersey. You know how to do that, right? He's like, no.
Liar.
But, yeah, I mean.
But how many people actually even understand a switch like that? And the danger is with the technology, they're turning us into Wallies. Most people don't understand that a switch is just interrupting that wire. Like, really, all you're doing is just connecting those two wires. The more digital everything gets, the less people know. Like, I remember everybody always had a spot in the trunk to pull a latch. Now they probably don't even have those because you can't open your latch. Like, there's nowhere to grab it.
I hate that.
It's only because the people you're kidnapping escape more easily.
No, not at all. If there was a cable, they could just pull it, right? Yeah, no, I hate that. I think the first time I came across it actually was your Cayenne, David. Now we've got it on the Levante, where you go to kind of grab the boot and you can't pull it down. And you have to press this button, and you have to stand back, and it bleeps, and the lights flash. It's like, you're some kind of hazard. Why? Why can't I just...
Yeah, if he's trying to steal 5 gallons of gas and throw it in the trunk, it's really going to give him away when he's, the lights are flashing.
And by the way, don't override that. Don't pull it down manually because you eventually you break the mechanism.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing that when you're talking about key fobs and keyless entry is the price of the key. You have to go and replace the key. It's like $500 to $1,000.
Yeah, you're not kidding. So we had that on the Ghibli because we only ever had one, and I looked at I think I might have asked the dealership, another key, and it was like, over 500. So I bought one on eBay, fake Maserati key fob, very nicely made, looked identical, right? And according to YouTube videos, don't pay any attention to those. If you had some dodgy Dodge programmer kit, you could program the key fob. Well, I couldn't find anyone that had that kit anyway. So eventually, when we did take the car to the dealership for something, I said, I know it's a dodgy fob, but can you program this fob? Yeah, that'll be $175.
Just to program it.
Just to program it, which basically is, point at something, have your computer
RFID. You just
bingo. 5 minutes, $175.
You know what those kits actually are used for most of the time? Is to steal them. So like you kids buy those. I watched this whole video, YouTube videos will get you down these crazy roads. But this guy was following car thieves, and they buy those key fobs. They just buy them online, and then they sit there. They buy, it's a special software piece. So as soon as they get they go stand next to the car, they can get the RFID numbers on it with that, hack it all in, boom, 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 and full send. It's like, that is just insane. And that's why I really like a mechanical key. Like, all of it is just so simple compared to.
I hear where you're coming from, Greg, but at the same time, when I was a kid, if you wanted to steal any kind of Ford whatsoever, whether it was a Ford Fiesta.
Shame on you for stealing a Ford to begin with, but.
I've never driven one. Or a RS Cosworth, all you needed was a flat blade screwdriver, basically.
What I'm telling you, we literally drove our minivan for years with the flat blade screwdriver. Some people looked at it as a con. I thought it was amazing. My dad would start the car, hand you the screwdriver so you could open the back door, and then you had to give him the screwdriver back so he could shut the car back off when he got there. But yeah, that was the multi-purpose, and the best part was he didn't even have like a real screwdriver. It was one that he had broke, so there was barely any flat pit like left on the end of it. So yeah.
I've noticed something here about it, Greg. I reckon he must have been the star of like Grand Theft Auto or something. He knows how to break a steering lock. He knows how to rekey keys.
No,
I don't think we don't about this guy, Tyler.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Honestly, though, but you take somebody like my dad who would drive a car like that forever to nowadays, he gets so frustrated when the simplest thing goes wrong in the car that he just buys a new car basically now. He's in one of those groups where he went from like when we were kids, plus we were kids, he had less money, but he would work on everything to now I don't even think he changes the oil in his car. He actually, he just brings it to the shop, and if like something major goes wrong, he's just like, nope, send it on for the next one.
Well, that's one of the things. Like, with new cars, you get the warranty and the whole thing, so that you don't have to do anything for 5 years. They cover everything.
Yeah.
You just take it in, and it's all within the price that you pay for the car. So that takes away all of that. You don't have to do anything yourself.
Yeah.
Well, that goes back to my neighbour with his newfangled fingerprint car. It's got a 10-year warranty on it with all the servicing provided. He ain't going to last that long. So, yeah, he's got no worries.
Well, the warranty, in the old days, I think in the 70s, in the UK, I don't think the cars even did they even have a warranty? It may have been like for 3 months or something.
Maybe 1 year if they were really confident, yeah.
No, because I remember I remember the story of a guy buying his company car with the Dolomite springs. Remember those engines? The heads used to warp. Yeah, the heads used to warp. And I remember his head warped in 3 months. And he said, I went back to the shop where I bought it from. And they're like, yeah, you've done your engine. He goes, is it under warranty? No, you just need to go and buy a new car. You're like, what? Because I remember that being such a big deal when the Subaru WRX came out in the UK is that it had a 3-year warranty, whereas if you bought the equivalent Ford or anything, it was like a year and very limited mileage, I think. And it was like, wow, you can actually have these cars and they'll be reliable. And if you blow up the engine, they'll replace the engine. It was just amazing to us. It was like a complete game changer. And nowadays, of course, cars have, I don't know, 3, 10-year, 5-year warranties. It just makes the ownership experience so easy compared to what we had to deal with when we were younger.
Yeah, unless you're using the warranty every week. I mean, Hyundai or Hyundai, however you want to pronounce it, you do that, and they have gotten my sister-in-law like, way too many times, and it's like, why do you keep buying them? Well, it's got a 10-year warranty. If you have to have a rental car 3 times a year, that's not good. It's like, what are we doing here?
Because that's the only way, and I wouldn't. That's the only way I'd actually own a Range Rover if I bought a new one, and I wouldn't do that because I can't handle depreciation. Because it has to warranty.
You don't want to throw away 75 grand.
No, thank you. Not today.
There is one thing on David's list, though, that we have to touch on, because this is huge until I never realized it. Heated and cooled seats. If you live where we live, you really want the heated ones, and where you guys are, I'm guessing the cooled ones. But I seen you complaining about the heated steering wheel. You have never gone outside when it's 30 below and you just scraped all the ice off your window, and the heated steering wheel is quite amazing.
No, that happens in Arizona. Sometimes in Sedona, very much in Flagstaff.
Oh, yes,
but the idea of I don't like heated seats. I don't like heated steering wheels. The flip side of that, a cooled steering wheel would have been good with my original Maserati, the Grand Sport, because that had a fake. No, actually, I think it was real. Carbon fiber steering wheel. So in the summer, I had to wear gloves to drive the car because if I left it in the sun, you couldn't touch that thing.
Imagine everybody looking at you putting your gloves on to race it. They're like, "Really, guy?" And it's like, "No, I really have to."
He probably wore mittens.
Oven mitts, yeah.
Oven mitts. He had Mom's oven mitts on out there, just kind of going. Oh, that's amazing. I tell you though, the heated seats, like when I was, my hip was real bad, I do love the heated seats. I've never had one with air conditioned seats. I can imagine where you guys are, that's a much bigger issue. I love the heated seats and the heated steering wheel.
Yeah. The last car I bought is the first car I've actually ever had. That was one of my requirements, is to try and get AC in the seats, because that whole sweaty back thing, I don't like that. So to get away from that, I know I haven't driven the car enough yet to see if it actually has any effect. But,
sounds good in theory.
It sounds good. Yeah, but like it's time to in Flagstaff, when up there in the winter, it gets to probably the coldest I've ever seen it in Flagstaff is -6. So, in the morning.
Yeah, that's cold.
You definitely want the heated seats, because the car can't warm up quickly enough, but those heated seats seem to warm within 30 seconds. It's amazing how quickly they warm up. So I can imagine people who are living in that kind of environment every day, that it's like, it's an absolute godsend.
Oh, yeah.
But likewise, so your new to you Lexus has got the air-cooled seats, which actually I like the sound of.
Yeah.
My dad has them in Florida. It's amazing. It's it's like a must-have down there. Yeah, he's got an old Expedition that he's actually just tried to give to me. I guess my wife told me I got to talk to him about it. But he's got an old Expedition that's got the air-conditioned seats, and it is quite nice. I was like, do you really need those? Just turn the car on before you get into it. And he was like, no, I'm telling you, you got to sit here. And he's like, oh yeah, it is great, because he can roll down his window and sit and talk. He's got a whole geezer club. They go around and they just all talk about each other's lawn or whatever old people talk about in Florida. And yeah, pretty much like this, without they're not recording it, so it's not as cool.
You should set him up a YouTube channel, Greg.
I've tried the content from him and his buddies would get us banned quickly. Their favorite thing is, so they call yoga pants Pulitzer pants because whoever invented yoga pants should get a Pulitzer Prize, is what they say. Not a Pulitzer, it's a Pulitzer. But whoever invented yoga pants, so they call them Pulitzer pants. I'm like, and it's this group of guys. They hang out at McDonald's for like 4 hours in the morning, 3 times a week. It's an impressive group down there.
That's what to look forward to.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
oh man, but the subscriptions I absolutely hate. I just ran into it with my Mazda on the subscription model. They didn't tell me it was only 3 years. I thought we got to start it forever from my phone. It does make sense that there's a subscription. I'm not paying $10 a month. I'm going to go get a new car starter.
What's the subscription for, Greg? What's it for?
So I can lock, unlock, and check the status of my vehicle and start it.
And unlock it, you have to pay.
No. Like you can do it from your the key fob, but yeah. See, so the Mazda app now is you have to enable it, but you can lock, unlock. It'll tell you if your car's locked, like how much gas you got in it, when your service is due. I mean, it's handy, but it's not $10 a month handy, I don't think.
Right.
I'll pay for a car starter.
Yeah, didn't BMW do it on certain functions on the cars? It may have been heated seats,
Are you serious? So you couldn't even from in the. Oh.
Yeah, it's brilliant. What's annoying to me is that like all the componentry exists in the car, so you've already paid for the componentry, but you have to pay the subscription. And isn't it? I think like the Tesla that the autopilot. I think that's close to $200 a month.
So when you try and turn your heated seats on in your Beamer, does the engine warning light come on to tell you that your subscription is running?
Probably so.
Check your engine or your subscription. It's one or the other.
Right.
They tell you.
Yeah.
But I mean, I wonder how much that's going to take a hold. I didn't realize that Mazda was doing it, so I assume all of them, because we don't buy new cars. It's hard for us to know exactly what's going on at that side of the market. But perhaps
first new car I ever bought, I had to get rid of my truck when I busted my hip, and it was like the market was crazy, and I was like, I'm not messing with anything. Went and bought a Mazda that I knew we were going to put 100,000 miles on it in a year, which it took us 3 years. We got 80,000 miles on it in 3 years, but I absolutely love the car. The subscription thing, I at least understand because it's like basically a cell phone or like a Wi-Fi chip. If you had a hotspot, your car has to have that to be able to communicate. So I can at least understand where it's coming from. If they tried to charge me to use heated seats that I already paid for, I would lose my mind. I would probably burn the car in their parking lot, honestly. I would be so mad. I'd be like, are you kidding me? You can keep this. That just seems stupid because at least, you literally paid for all the components. What would be the purpose of the subscription?
Yeah.
Money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I blame Adobe for that. They started this.
No, they didn't. That's not fair. Chris, I'm a subscriber.
No, I mean honestly, with the subscriptions, like I said, if you're paying for that, the autopilot though, I think it's because they're constantly updating it. So, but they also don't use lasers; they use cameras. It's crazy.
Yeah, let's talk about that because I know that's on David's bitch list, and I would agree. I think the Levante has got like lane correction stuff. I personally hate that because it
constantly tells you you're off.
Well, yeah.
No, because like if you drive where you're like paying attention to the turn and you move like to the outside of the lane to cut across the middle to get a straight line, like it will. That's why I was joking when I said it, but it does correct you all the time. And my son actually argued with me about it. He's like, "No, the car." I'm like, "No, I'm telling you, bud. Look at this turn. Get over here so you can see around it."
I hate the idea of the car taking control away from me.
And mine doesn't do that. It just vibrates. You're talking, it actually pushes you back?
I don't know, but my buddy over here up in Cottonwood had a brand new Beamer, I don't know, 5 Series or whatever. He threw it in a ditch because he was trying to see how fast it would go around the roundabout. And when he tried to correct it, it caught him. So they were fighting each other. And that ended up with the car being written off.
Badly.
Brand new bin.
Yeah.
Right, because
Wow.
you're then compensating for what the car's compensating for, and it's fighting you, you're fighting it. So if you can drive, you obviously want to turn all that stuff off, and on some of these cars you just can't turn it all off, right? So I don't know where he was at. I don't think he's that good a driver necessarily, but he
At
ended
least
up
you knew it was your fault.
totally.
You know, like back before all this, you knew, like, okay, I did something stupid.
I put it in the
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
on your end of it, David, what have your cars had that? Have you had one that corrected you back in, or are you more just talking like the notification of it?
No, so I've seen it on rental cars. That's where I've seen it, on rental cars, and exactly what you were describing. You're going down I wouldn't even say a curvy road, and it tries. Yeah, it was like the steering wasn't responding. It was like, what is going on here? And the person who had it was like, yeah, it's trying to correct what you're doing. I'm like, Jesus, it just feels so unnerving.
Yeah, that's scary.
Steering us back, and he's like, yeah, that's not. But then I know some people who are such bad drivers.
It's good.
You're like, I'm glad it exists, because those people crashing all the bloody time.
Yeah.
So when you've seen truly bad drivers like braking.
Oh yeah.
Because my dad used to be a driving instructor, and he used to tell me about the people who were learning to drive. You're like, yeah, they can't steer. Just like you were talking, Tom, and with one of your relatives was knew how to counter steer straight away. And some people don't know how to steer, period. It's like shocking.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a purpose for it for people who are absolutely hopeless. And I think there's quite a few of those people.
No, that's the point, David. There is not a point for it because of that. Those people should not be driving, period.
But then we'd have to.
I'm sorry.
You don't have buses.
If you can't steer the damn thing, you shouldn't be driving.
One thing though I will say is, so the Mazda we have, it alerts you if you're getting close. It vibrates the steering wheel a little bit, but it doesn't correct you. It just actually like activate. It just gives you a little vibration on the steering wheel, which isn't bad. It makes you feel like you hit this rumble strips almost. But the automatic cruise control, which uses a laser off the car in front of you to set the pace, huge fan of that. It's when we spend hours and hours driving. The only honest problem with it is sometimes you'll look down and all of a sudden you're doing like 10 miles under the speed limit, following some like big truck because you were just kind of happily cruising and not paying attention. Which is, it's not really the end of the world. You're just going a little slower than you want to.
No, I get that, and that adaptive cruise control. A mate of mine had it in his XKR in Jaguar in the UK. Because cruise control in the UK is a total waste of time. I mean, you're never going to use it because in the US, I've driven 200 miles on cruise control and never had to let it off, brake, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Because you can. In the UK, it's a total waste of time unless it's adaptive. That's kind of good when it works well, and I don't know when it does and when it doesn't because I've never had a car with it. I know. Top Gear tested a Mercedes, one of the first Mercedes that was supposed to have it, and it was amazing. And they put the thing through a brick wall. So I'm assuming it's developed since then, slightly better.
Yeah.
But I think it's like most things. You still got to pay attention. Like you still are responsible for yourself, and not.
Right.
Like honestly, I've tested it to the point where it'll slow you down, but 99.9% of the time, I can't let the car do it. Like I hit the brake before the car starts to slow down. Like my natural reaction is I want to start, like I've explained it to Jared as he's driving. Yeah, well, your momentum's got to be under control. If you feel yourself coming forward out of the seat, until you've ever broken free, you don't know how hard it's going to go. Like, learning to stop like that. Right. I try to explain momentum is everything. If he can understand momentum, it'll help him a long ways with driving.
So, Greg, when the car's adjusting for the speed, do the brake lights come on?
Yep. Yeah. So the car, so it most of the times it will use your transmission. Like the Mazda actually has gears instead of a CVT. So like it'll downshift to use the transmission to slow you down or and all that, and it's really nice. But if it gets on the brakes heavy, I've seen the taillights flip on at night
Okay.
behind me. So it'll actually apply your brakes for you. And it is weird because when you go to hit the brake, you don't feel the brake engage until you catch up to where they are on the brake, which is nice if you know your brakes because it's the same system. So like you feel you're like, okay, this is how much brake I'm putting onto it. But as a new driver, that would probably be a really weird feeling. Taking over the brake from that's already partially depressed.
Right. Yeah, that's
I
cool.
actually never even thought about it. It's just one of the natural things, but I have seen the light kick on behind me, and I know when I get on the brakes from it, I have to push it, in a ways before you feel it grab.
Right. But it's not. It doesn't put the brake lights on when it's just slowing it down using the gears.
Nope.
Yeah. Okay.
No, it wouldn't. And I've done that on hills around here in the FJ because, as you know, David, it's got like 4 manual gears. And of course, everything starts piling up your backside because you're not braking, you're just changing that. Especially on the bikes, right, Greg? You use the gears all the time rather than the brakes.
Yeah. Have you ever driven a fully electric car?
No.
No,
No. I've only ever been a passenger on one, which was the Tesla sporty thing, owned by a quite. I want to be polite here, but quite an elderly lady.
So it's not like you were really getting after it. So,
well, no, we were, and it scared the crap out of me.
The electric motors are unbelievably fast, but they, if you put the regen braking on, it's like driving something with that, where you feel it with the gear, and you don't use the brakes in those electric cars either. As long as you turn the regen on, it feels a lot like using your transmission. And that's how I've explained it to people. Is, it's kind of like using a motorcycle where you can really use, a 4-stroke, not a 2-stroke, where you don't get that engine brake. But as long as you've ever driven something with engine brake, that's what the regen is like. And it's actually, I tell you, those electrics, I would never want one to drive all the time because I don't want to have to plug it in. But for a toy like a motorcycle is, or for something fun, they are fast. Oh my goodness, those electric motors.
Oh yeah.
They
Going back to the engine braking on a motorbike, so with the Ducati, the 748, the big-ish twin, if you changed down too early and just dumped the clutch, that would lock up the back wheel. Right? So, there'd be a big chirp and a cloud of smoke because that was the power of the engine braking. So, yeah, significant.
Well, and especially but for Americans, especially like the motocross Americans, that's how a lot of them drive them. They drive the entire thing using that, back tire to like a rudder, they just shift it like that. So that's kind of how, it makes sense for them. I mean, obviously you don't want to lock it up like that on the pavement, but it's a similar feeling. And it's the main reason I push my son to get on a motorcycle is just because you'll feel, what happens when you lock up that back tire and that you can't do more. You got to let the, momentum carry, let the wheels do their thing, then get back on it. But it also, as a dad, kind of poop your pants as you're watching him do it, hoping he doesn't do like my wife did and grab a handful of front brake and just go over the handlebars.
Oh, yeah.
Motorcycles, is the technology that far? Have they stopped the ultimate stoppie? I don't know how you would, because are you going to let them crash into something?
I have no idea, Greg. The most modern motorcycle I have here is a 2005, so it's 20 years old, right?
I got a 17 CRF 250L. It's pretty old school, but I do like fuel injected, and that was my only thing. I was like, I want something that I can just go out in the garage and turn the key and start, never have to worry about.
Right. Yeah.
Best thing about fuel injection, your carbs aren't gummed up. You don't have to leave them there. But what happens when those nozzles get clogged? Can you pull it off and clean it? I've never messed with it.
Yeah, you can, because I think Mike had to do that with the Stratos, with the Alpha motor. I think he had to clean the fuel injectors, I think.
Oh, so, yeah.
I think you can.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, again, I kind of want to go back to the engine warning light thing, and just electronics over analog checks of what's working and what's not, because just a couple of things. So the crossfire that I had that we talked about in the last episode, that went into limp mode.
It's a beautiful
Cause-
thing, isn't it?
So that's my gripe, right? Limp mode, right? Because actually it's relevant to both stories for two different things. So that went into limp mode, and we were checking all kinds of stuff. It was a sensor that had broken. So it was just a Tupney Halfpenny electronic sensor that couldn't tell whether the coolant was too hot, too cold. Basically lost engagement with what temperature the engine was running at. So the whole car goes into limp mode, won't go over 30 miles an hour.
And probably didn't have a temperature gauge on the car anymore.
Don't remember, honestly.
Because I love that nothing has gauges on them. A lot of these new cars, and it's like you can't look at anything and hope for the best.
Yeah, no way of reading it, and we'll come to the gauges as well. But that was it, So the whole car's kaput until you take it in and find out it's a silly little sensor that costs like $10. Had the similar on a Mercedes CLK. Yeah, I mean that's the most important thing. Having said that, in my old Maserati, the Grand Sport, the oil pressure warning light did come on, and actually it started flickering in the stratos, but the pressure was still good on the gauge. So here's the point, right? That if the gauge is mechanical and it's showing you that the pressure is good, then you can be more confident in that than something electronic, which has just kind of gone kaput again.
Well, yeah, like I even have a temperature sensor supposedly gauge on my thing, but it's a digital gauge. Like there's no copper spring, like there's nothing moving that I can check. Yeah, like it kind of infuriates me because as somebody who I'm not super mechanically inclined, but I feel like if you're going to drive a car, you should understand the basics. And if you don't understand what's going on with it, you probably shouldn't be, you just shouldn't operate anything that you don't like have some understanding of. Like there's an explosive tank underneath you somewhere in this vehicle. Like could you wrap your head around that before we drive? And I mean even as a smoker you see people all
if you're on a motorcycle, it's right between your legs.
Right between your legs. Like literally we're going around with a bomb. Speaking of which, so I had to ask this to Dave. You've got this Porsche Cayenne, and honestly without the new technology they would never have made an SUV that's faster than what the Corvette used to be. Do you have that version, or do you have the wannabe Cayenne? Because isn't there two different ones? They've got like the super fast one that was faster than I believe the stock Corvettes were when they came out. I mean, this was like 20 years ago when they first came out with it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That car's quick.
Yeah.
I mean, Tom's driven it right time. It's
impressive.
It's really incredibly capable for what it is. I think it's got 550 horsepower.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, it's insane. 550 horsepower and essentially what looks like a car that somebody drives to soccer practice or to the office or to pick up groceries in. But it's 500. I love when you see them and you're like, I wonder if that person realizes how fast they're going. If I go by them in my Mazda with my little tiny, like 1.4 liter, I'm like, are you serious, guys? Like, what are we doing here?
But I think it's Greg, I don't even talk about it because, like, the Audi Q8, I think I was looking at something a couple of years ago. I like an Audi Q5. It was 0 to 60 in 3.2 seconds.
That's ridiculous.
It's crazy. So, like, the Cayenne when it came out, the reason I have it is because the reviews were this thing is an SUV, but it drives like an M5.
Yeah.
And it's pretty close to that. I mean, the acceleration's really good and it handles really well for the, for the mass that it is. It's a heavy vehicle. But yeah, newer cars, just like you're talking about the electric stuff, they're also crazy quick that you just don't realize how quick they are. Like in the old days, you could get away from the lights and you'd leave everybody for dead.
Yeah.
You can't nowadays. If they actually push the accelerator on their car, they can easily get past you because there's so much power. It's just all those things are ridiculous. All ridiculous.
So
it's the minor way we go off road.
just a question: you still got the Cayenne?
Yeah, it's up for sale.
I was going to say, yeah. So anyone interested in a super quick SUV, there is a Cayenne for sale. So just
and they're good.
Comments.
I love this one. Just leave it in the comments.
They're dirt cheap nowadays.
Well, that's like your Maserati's got off-road mode. I mean, how many people are doing that? You're not doing that for another 5-10 years. Then you sell it like he does to somebody at an overland show. But I mean, how many people you think buy that Maserati and ever actually need that off-road button? Probably
Never.
two less people than do the Jeep.
This is just between us three, right? Oh, and everyone else is watching. David introduced me to a group here in Arizona that do little like rally cross almost, right? At some point, I want to take the Levante, but don't tell the missus.
Okay. Just make sure you wash it afterwards.
Yeah, right. I just took it down to the car wash, darling.
Yeah, that's fine. Look at how.
So Greg, I've had Cayennes for at least 10 years. I've had two. And I think I may have been one of the first people to ever take one off-road.
Probably 10 years, so a 20-year-old car. I would probably say 10 years into it. That's a safe bet. Just like Diamond will be the first one to ever take that Maserati, off-road. It'll be the first one ever off-road. You can get a picture of it and have to send it to Maserati. Be like, finally, I'm using the off-road button that you guys put in here.
And it's amazing what looks you used to get, because that thing was better. It was better than a lot of other cars. So a lot of other. I remember going up a place called Montana Mountain, and I had 4 bikes on the back and 4 guys in the truck. I remember going up this road and it's switchbacks and it's potholes and all this kind of stuff. I remember overtaking a Tundra on the way up, and the guys were just shocked. And the car is so bloody comfortable that it's like, oh yeah, it doesn't feel like we're on a rough road, but it's got air suspension, locking diffs. It's got all of that technology in it, and it was flying up this road.
Oh yeah.
And this guy in this Tundra was like, I can't believe we've got to pull over for this. Yeah, come on, get a move on.
Yeah, come on, let's go. Well, that's like, honestly, so most people like that buy around me, you get about a lot of the jacked up Jeeps and the trucks. That's the big thing.
Yeah.
But honestly, most Subaru Imprezas are going to outperform them in the woods than a lot of those trucks. So I got lucky when I was like 16. I went out with a guy that had an Outback, and we went out and we were in the mud and leaving Jeeps in mud puddles and just having a blast. Nothing but smiles. And then you got done at the end of it, washed the car off, and it's still, it was fun. I do love Jeeps. I just like the top off rock crawler thing, but I think it's honestly the most useless American car ever made. It's a nice summer toy, but anybody who, like, we see them driving around by us all the time. These 4-door Jeeps, I laugh. I got passed on the highway driving home from Buffalo, and this Willys, it said Willys on the side of it, was doing 80 miles an hour. I was like, there's no Willys in the world that should be doing 80 miles an hour down the road. That car is not meant to do that. Like, if you want that, go get something else. But yeah, these Willys that are doing 80 miles an hour down the highway, I wonder how well they do overseas, tearing through like the old Willys were designed to do.
Yeah.
But going back to David's Cayenne, I mean, it's an incredible all-round vehicle, because I mean, we've towed together the race car for thousands of miles. It's like it's not even behind you, right? You don't even know you're really towing anything. It just copes with it perfectly, and as you say, you've actually taken it off road, and it's actually very capable. So
yeah.
You must get some looks pulling up to the racetrack though, pulling it in a Cayenne. Like they're sitting there going, wait, is the Cayenne what he's racing, or is it the thing that's on the back, or is that what they work on when they're done racing the Cayenne?
Not in lemons, yeah.
But nowadays, quite a few people are actually towing with Cayenne. So I do, I know people who are doing the overlanding with them, and I know people who are towing all the time. So it's more commonplace nowadays, because you can buy them inexpensively. and they do such a great job, but you just got to pay for the maintenance. That's the problem.
Yeah.
They do get a little bit pricey for some of the parts.
I can imagine. I mean, I won't even buy a Volkswagen because of the cost of replacement parts afterwards. My buddy, back when, so remember the diesel crisis a couple years ago, they found out they were cheating on emissions or whatever. My buddy was buying up every diesel he could that people were selling because they were all getting rid of them. Yeah, he loves them. He's like, and they screwed it up trying to put this stupid patch in. He's like, yeah, it's more fuel efficient now, but it's actually, he goes on a whole kick with how much worse for the environment it is. He's like, they actually killed my fuel economy because it's more, more environmentally friendly now. I get 5 miles less to the gallon. How much less carbon could you emit to make up for that?
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, it's getting close to 6 o'clock, guys. So I'm going to have to call it a day.
Yeah, this one went.
Agreed. And we could go on forever, honestly.
Right.
So we'll come up with a new topic, I think, for next time around. Thanks, everyone, for watching, and thanks you two for joining in. Fun, as usual. See you next time.
See you next time.